What is going on, everybody? Back again today to bring you guys a review of season one of Apple Plus's new show Foundation. This show is loosely based. I'm gonna say loosely based off of the uh, groundbreaking, critically acclaimed, very famous science fiction novel Foundation and the overall Foundation book series written by Isaac Asimov. This is a very long spanning book series. He wrote it, started it in the 50s, and I think he finished it in like the late 80s, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. But it's very beloved, holds a very special place in the annals of science fiction literature, and for a long time people have said that it could not be adapted, but Apple Plus is trying it. Let's check out the trailer just for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, give you guys a little bit of a visual idea of what we're talking about here today.
When I was a child at the edge of the galaxy, I heard stories about a man who could forecast the future. But the story remained dark to me until many years later, until it became my story. Until it became the only story.
You're familiar with my work, Psychohistory?
Every mathematician has read your theory.
It's not a theory. It's the future of mankind expressed in numbers. And the Empire won't like the future I predict.
History is littered with charlatans and false messiahs.
We should kill them. We can murder the man, but what about the movement, brother? Martyrs tend to have a long half-life.
His math was right. The Empire is dying.
Wars will be endless. 1,000 worlds reduced to cinders.
Change is frightening, especially to those in power. But we can soften the fall.
So what's the plan?
Many years from now, if humanity is to climb from the ashes, the coming generations will need the knowledge to build upon, a foundation.
We must preserve only the most essential pieces of civilization. Deciding what is remembered, what is forgotten.
We are now staring down a barrel of a crisis.
This is the plan. I'm not turning around now.
So yeah, that's a little look at Foundation. So what is this show really about? To get into a little bit more detail than what the trailer kind of gave you the idea of. So this show takes place very, very far into our future, a hypothetical science fiction future, in which humanity has spread throughout the universe. Not like we've discovered all of the universe, but just a lot of it. Many different solar systems, different galaxies. It's the human empire is huge, and it was unified by the first emperor whose name was Cleon. And ever since he unified it, he installed what he called a genetic dynasty, which is after he died, or I assume this is what happened. After, it's never really clarified. After he died, he had 3 clones of himself prepared, and there's always 3 clones of him running the empire. There's one that is and at different ages. There's one they start out being brought out of the cloning chamber, whatever you want to call it, incubation chamber. They're brought out as an infant, and then they grow up. And there's always 3, and they're called Brother Day, or Brother Dawn, which is the youngest, Brother Day, which is the middle, and Brother Dusk, which is the oldest one. And of course, when the oldest one finally reaches the point in their life where they start to have like cognitive decline, that's when they are phased out and a new infant one is decanted, as they call it. So for, I think they say 400 years, maybe 4,000, I'm not quite sure. This is a 10 episode first season, and it's been one episode a week for the past 10 weeks. So, or at least past 8 weeks, I guess, past 2 months. So I'm going to be going off of memory here as best I can. Some of the stuff from earlier episodes I may have forgotten. But this genetic dynasty has been ruling this vast human empire throughout space for a very long time, and they've been ruling it well. But this mathematician, this crazy good mathematician named Harry Seldon, he develops this new form of mathematics that he calls psychohistory. And what psychohistory does is it's a mathematical predictive model for massive groups of human beings. And he uses this mathematical model, this predictive model, to predict the future using like mathematical probability. And what he predicts, what he finds in the math, is that this great empire that preserves peace and order throughout the universe, throughout all of human inhabited space, is going to fall and collapse. There's going to be a social collapse, and there's going to be just anarchy and barbarism reigning throughout the stars for what he has determined mathematically to be 30,000 years. But he has also determined through the math that there are certain precautions, certain things that can be done now that won't stop the fall from happening, but they will shorten the amount of time that the human race is in chaos. And he's mathematically sure that he can shorten it down to, from 30,000 years, he can shorten it down to 1,000 years. And his plan to do this, what he says at the beginning is, I'm going to set up a foundation. And this foundation, it's just going to be called the foundation. And what it is it's going to be a hub of knowledge and expertise and skills that it will be essential to rebuilding advanced human society. It's a foundation for, when the dust of the collapse finally settles, he says this in the trailer, the remnants of humanity will need something to build upon, a foundation. So his idea is he's going to collect and hoard knowledge and people who have great amounts of expertise and technical training and skill, and he's going to hoard them all together in one location, keep them safe from the fall and the collapse. And once the fall and collapse happens, this foundation is going to be able to help rebuild interstellar society. It's an interesting idea, mainly for me because, one, Isaac Asimov, when writing this, he used the fall of the Roman Empire as inspiration for this. And I've always found ancient Roman and Greek history to be interesting. And so to see it kind of paralleled in science fiction is interesting. But also, if you take a look around at our modern world today, it seems like things are just getting more and more chaotic and more out of control. The pandemic, climate change, political and social strife, just everywhere you look, it just seems like things are getting out of control. And you're almost sitting here kind of going like, we don't have psychohistory. We don't have a mathematical formula that can predict the future. But I mean, like, if we did, what are the chances that it would say like a societal collapse is imminent and socially we're all going to regress and go back to like have a second dark age? It's an interesting concept, and it got me intrigued in this show. So I watched the show. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, it is not book accurate. For those of you who have read the book or the book series and you're kind of like, you have yet to try the show, but you kind of want to, I'm going to inform you right now, it is not book accurate, but it couldn't be, especially with the first book in the Foundation series, which is just called Foundation. That is an anthology collection of short stories that Isaac Asimov collected into a novel that he called Foundation, but it was written as a series of short stories. So the chapters of that book are stories unto themselves, and they don't really connect all that well. So, I mean, they do. They're all part of one big overall story of the Foundation, but not in the way that you would want a narrative to work out for a TV show. So they had to take some liberties and make some tweaks and adjustments to it, but I still found the show to be very enjoyable. I found the acting and all the actors they were well cast. They did their jobs really well. The set design, the special effects, the costumes, the props and weapons, sound effects, everything was top notch. Exactly what you would expect from Apple with the kind of money they have. It's like, yo, Apple, with the kind of money you have, if you go to make a science fiction TV show, it better fucking look like Foundation. You know what I mean? And it does. It looks beautiful. It's well acted. I loved it. I loved the first season, even though it's not book accurate. Yeah. Without giving anything away, that's really all I have to say. My videos where I have nothing but positive things to say tend to be shorter videos. I really think you should give it a shot. If you like science fiction, or if you're just looking for a new, really good show to try, it's worth watching. There are some time. It does get a bit confusing. There are some time skips throughout the series, so I'm gonna fill you in on what those are right now. It's not a spoiler. It's just to kind of clarify things when you watch it. So you have the first 2 episodes. Those take place. That's the beginning, obviously. First 2 episodes. After the first 2 episodes, the show jumps 35 years into the future. I believe it's 35 or 37. It's one of the two. Then, at the very end, the final episode, the show jumps, at a certain point in the very final episode of season 1, the show jumps another like 100 or so years into the future. So, it's interesting. And like I said about the 3 emperors, how there's always a young one, a middle one, and an old one. It's the same actors that play the 3, except for the young one. They had a young boy in the first 2 episodes, but then later on they show him as like a teenager. So it's 2 actors there. But Lee Pace, who plays the middle-aged one, Brother Day, who's supposed to be in like his early to mid-30s, that dude deserves an Emmy for this, because holy shit, like he plays. They end up having to play this. It's such a weird dynamic it's like, this is, I think, the kind of role that I feel like an actor would dream of. It's like you're gonna play a person, you're gonna play a character who is different. You're gonna play 2 characters who are different from one another, but they're also the same. It's like, what an interesting role to try and take on. They are different in that they are different human life forms that have had different experiences throughout their lives, but genetically and biologically, they are supposed to be exactly the same as their predecessors. So there's going to be similarities, but there's going to be differences, and they get to play around with that. Oh my gosh, he ends up playing, like at the beginning, the first 2 episodes, Lee Pace is playing a version. He's playing one of the clones in their middle age who is just a ruthless tyrant. And then, for the most of the remainder of the series, he plays a version of one of the clones that is a little more like questioning his own role a little bit as emperor. He still can be a ruthless tyrant, but yeah, God, that was interesting. Watching the emperors, any of the scenes with the emperors was so fascinating to watch them play those roles, and to change roles but also stay in the same role, but it's also changed. God, it's so hard to explain. You just got to watch it. It was a great show. I highly recommend it. Absolutely top-notch science fiction. Cannot recommend it enough. So yeah, short review. I loved it. Anyone else who has watched it, leave some comments below, get a discussion going. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? If you liked this video, please hit the like button. That really helps out the channel. Another way to help out the channel, if you want, is to check out some of my other videos and possibly subscribe. Other than that, I will see you guys next time.